Welcome, friend. We're back. Today's topic is still about chord changing and still about the point of change. But now what we're doing is looking at chord change mechanics and grip strategy, so that by the end of this video, you'll have more frustration busting tools to go by to make sure that you can change from one chord to another in an efficient way. And I'm going to cover a little bit review about the point of change, and I've got sort of 4 categories of movement in this one. I call one the hop. There'll actually be another video about that in the description. The hop, the rock, the scrunch, and the stretch. Those are the sort of 4 categories. Now the vehicle for this one's going to be an Adele song. Now you don't have to learn the song, you don't have to learn any of these songs that we're dipping into to show you these movements. It's all about learning the movement. It's about understanding the principle of how you can train your hands to meet up with your head and your ears and everything else, to just short circuit the sort of frustration that comes with trying to just learn a chord frame box and go from one to the other. You know, you're just trying to look at the logical ways where even if at first it might be sort of a cheat, you know, where you're just sort of sneaking your way into it. And then bit by bit, like I said in a couple other videos, you know, if you got a D and an F chord, it's a big twisting movement. You know, you get... But after a while, you'll be able to grab that as sort of as blocks. But we want to look at these movements. So this Adele song, I'm going to do it purposely in the wrong key. The real key, if I think it's the key, I haven't listened to it for a long time. I think it starts on an A chord, which would be this sound. Yeah, someone like you. But we're going to do it in F, and then you can transfer this to any key you want. Now I think the rock school does it in A with this shape, and the C sharp minor, which you probably, some of you will recognize, some of you won't recognize these 2 fingers here as being C sharp minor. But anyway, we're going to start with an F chord to an A minor to a D chord, but we're not going to play it this way. And it's going to have a B flat in it. So the first thing is we're going to grab these chords with our fingering, which are pretty common fingering, but you know, we're going to grab them in a sort of logical way for us for this song. But you want to do this with every song you learn, every chord pattern that you learn. So you're going to take this F chord in a pretty standard 3-2-1 shape. F major 7 with the E on the top. But we're only playing the triad. The triad being the 3 notes that make an F chord, every other letter starting on an F. F, skip the G, play the A, skip the B, play the C. That's a triad. Every other letter, every other key of a keyboard. Anyway, and the triad is going thumb, index, middle, index. For you classical guys, that's P-I-M-I, P-I-M-I. Now, the first movement and the first point of change is the F to the A. And you want to just make this nice and simple. I'll just jump right to the chase here, to cut right to the chase. You're going to do what I call the hop. You're going to keep the common finger, which is the note C, or B1, fret 1 of the B. And both of these chords have a C in it because you got F, A, C. An A triad would be an A and a C and an E. But we've got the E that we're going to move to here, the octave. So we're going to do this P-I-M-I thing. The whole thing would go, I guess it's, what is it, 4 times? Yeah. Now we're just going to practice this point of change. Now there's a little cheat here. When you go P is pulgar, means thumb. I'm going to use those. It's a lot easier than saying finger names as index and middle and all that. So P, I, and M is easy. I for index, M for middle. P rhymes with T, and that stands for trouble. No, P rhymes with T, and P is the old word pulgar for thumb. Latin, I guess. Or, you know, it's indicio medio, you know. Pulgar, indicio medio. Thumb, index, middle. So we're going to go P-I-M-I. Now on the second time you hit the I, P-I-M-I, if you raise your fingers, you can launch for the hop into the A minor. So the slow motion, you're going to go like this. See if it's a good version of it here. And you can practice that hopping back and forth. right hand a bit more. You speed it up. The open G doesn't matter, you know, that's like if you were strumming. I'll talk more about that when I sort of go into a little bit more about hops in another video. I just want you to see this set of motions for this tune and see how all these little ideas apply in other songs. So now you've got that. That's your first point of change, the F to the A. Now, I call it the hop because that's what you're doing, and you don't need to hop that finger because it's a common tone. They both have that tone. So now you got that. When you do the song, it'll be 4 times each. About that fast, maybe? If you can do the hop and hit that note as a G2, which is the note A, still hopping, but it's more like, you know, you're running across a creek and the rocks are a bit smaller and further apart. You know, as you're hopping, you got to be a little more careful, that's all. But if you let that open G ring, it just doesn't matter. No one will notice or care. So now you've got this A. Now this next one, instead of going, I guess it would be D minor, wouldn't it? So you're going, you're putting that pinky finger down and you're lifting these guys. And you wouldn't even have to lift this finger because once you've got a finger in front of a finger, the finger behind is doing nothing. You know what I mean? If it's on the same string, it's doing nothing. But really, this goes down to another thing that I'll show you in another video where you're learning how to control your fingertips with sort of haptic awareness. You know, I call it digital awareness, you know, or which finger's which, you know, to really, that sounds so simple, but I got people of all ages that have been playing a long time, and I'm looking right at them and I'm going, your third finger. So anyone who out there knows me, don't get your feelings hurt, but you know, we all do it. I still do it, you know, your third finger. And they're going, yeah. And you go, no, your third finger, you know, and third finger. And finally they go, oh yeah, that's right. That's that one, you know. Sometimes what we feel, what we think isn't, you know, it's an illusion, you know, like an optical illusion or some little physical illusion that we get. So anyway, you're trying to move from this A chord by dropping your pinky and raising the other two up. And you want to practice that little movement. It's like rocking back and forth. That's why I call it the rock. You're just hopping. You're not really hopping. You're just sort of like a seesaw, pivoting off of this finger, the third finger. And this is developing that digital awareness that you want to become second nature, where you start to control your fingers in an independent way, you know, that if you can sort of make up the 24 combinations of single digits that you get, you'll get 24 combinations. You get, was it 256? I think I Googled it up to, if you start to repeat. But with just single fingers, you'll get 24 combinations. I've got a page on that. I've got, you know, more videos coming out, some that are already out, you know. Anyway, so now this is what you're practicing. Back and forth. The point of change. You're not worried about playing the whole song. If you try to play the whole song, you know, it takes a long time. I think I mentioned a 4-minute pop song. I think this one's 4 minutes. And this is a classic example of if you just play the song from start to end, you'll get about 10 times through in an hour's practice or so, you know, or 45 minutes practice. 2 minutes either side to pack up and all that kind of stuff. You're going to play it 10 times. I'm sure there's something in that song that only happens once. And that, you know, you really want to focus on the mechanics of what you're doing. So you're doing that, the hop, and then the rock. Back and forth. Now after the rocking one, after this is a D chord that you're formed part of, you're going to do this, what I call the scrunch, and you're going to keep your pinky there, the common finger. And this is a less common way of forming what would be normally the A chord shape for you. But now it's A sharp, but really its primary name would be B flat. There's a reason for that, don't worry about it. So what you've done is you've taken this little diagonal shape of 2 fingers that you've planted here after sort of seesawing back and forth with this funny little fingertip movement of 2 fingers up, 2 fingers down, you know. And and then you're shoving that into that third fret. Now this next thing that you're on to now, the next point of change, you got point of change pair 1, sorry, point of change pair 1, the hop, or the hop without the open, yeah, and then you've got the little seesaw, the rock. You've done that. Now from the seesaw you move to the scrunch. Now the other one, the last one I mentioned, the stretch, is not happening in the song, but it's going to happen to you somewhere as you go through life on the guitar that you need to stretch back out. The scrunch, the stretch. You could call it the scrunch and the drag, because that's kind of dragging backward. And that's what you want to do. Save yourself the misery of trying to play one song from start to finish over and over again for hours and making a different mistake in a different place every time, and then trying to fix that mistake only to make a new mistake in a new place. You don't want to go that route. You know, that's a rocky road. What you want to do is you want to think, pair number 1. Am I happy with that? Because if I can do that, and I know I can just do it just like brushing my teeth without making a mistake, then it's time to move on to the next one until it becomes just like tying your shoe or something. You know, I can do that. Yeah, that's so cool. So then you know that you can then put those together, and you can do them in a row, and then you then work on the next hit with the byproduct of the backwards drag in order to repeat your point of change. Okay, now you're here and you think, what do I got next? The next chord, what is it? You're back, really. I'm not going to sing, but that's the idea behind that, you see. Now if you then realize that that's really the wrong key and you did it in the right key, so that's an A, a C sharp minor, an F sharp minor, and a D. And the only new movement, it's not really that new, it's kind of a scrunch and a drag at the same time. You lift a finger, you push, you're dragging by pushing, and you drop 2 in. It's a little bit of a hop, a little bit of a scrunch, and a little bit of a pushing drag. This one's just, the first one's just a pivot, just a dropping in. And then the same thing, you got the just like you did, it's like the seesaw. So it's the similar movements, but they're kind of closer together than ours. Now you're in the right key. But if you did it here, you'll have the same hop. You won't get away with that one so much, but you can. But really, now you're sort of forced to do the smaller rocks further apart, you know, quicker jump. But that's a good place to maybe practice your point of change again and learn to leave out the open string. That's why I started in that key and moved to this key, so you can do this in stages. Now you're going to have your seesaw, but it's a bit of a stretch, and it's not just 2 fingers anymore. You got to do that finger as well. So you got an A, D minor, no, sorry, C sharp minor, F sharp minor laid out this way. It's just an F sharp power chord, really. And then you're going to do the same thing. That scrunch, yeah, which is kind of what this is here, really, a scrunch with a little drag in it. You're just going to do the scrunch. And you can practice that, the scrunch up and the drag back. get that version of that one up in this key now. You end up with a D chord here. That's a D chord because if you take an A chord and you imagine your finger across the nut here, and that's the A note, the A that's crossing the nut tuned to an A. And when I move that, everything together becomes A sharp, becomes B, becomes C, C sharp, and D. But we're not reaching for that root. We're not reaching for a whole bar. We're just using these three fingers to get the triad again, which is every other letter. It's D's, F's, and A's. Now the F is sharp, like it would be here, but it's still an F. It's D's, F's, and A's. D, skip to E, play the F, skip to G, play the A. And that's your triad, and that's all these things are. So that's what you're doing, is you're just sort of looking at the three possible ways of playing this, which would be F to A, F major to A minor to a D minor, I guess that would be, but we don't, we only play in that power chord sort of version, to a D to a B flat. That's those couple of these aren't triads, you see, they're just power chords. So that one up here, same thing, it's just an F sharp power chord. So you got those notes, and if you did it here, this part of the A doesn't look like an A because you're only grabbing that bit of it, but it's really just, these three fingers instead of these three, because this is the situation. You might as well use these two. That doesn't look like a C sharp minor, but it's a C and an E and a G. But the C happens to be sharp and the G happens to be sharp. And if you know about how minor chords work with bars, the same way this one worked is A major. We take the A minor, and what we get is C sharp, E, and G sharp. C, skip to E, skip the D, play the C, skip the D, play the E, skip the F, play the G. But in this case, when you have a C sharp and an G sharp, C sharp and G sharp, that E in the middle has been sort of scrunched into a position where it's like the minor sounding version. When you play a regular C chord, C, E, G, if I reach for it, I go C, E flat, really hard to reach, G. I can't play this E now. Can't make it E flat without turning it. So I get that. Now I use something like that maybe in a phrase where if I'm going, but if I really want to try and do that, I do sometimes if I have to, but it's hard. So that's just the difference between major and minor. That's a little offshoot sidebar. Get carried away, forgive me. A major, C sharp minor, F sharp minor, and then D major. In our key, starting key was F major, A minor, D power chord, D chord, to B flat major. When you do it here, it looks like an F, but again, it's just been moved up to A. The A minor's been moved up to D minor. Our F sharp's been done this way around, like a D minor that's been moved up. And our B flat's been shifted up to here, so we get the D chord. So it's the same kind of idea. I hope that makes some sense. But anyway, it's not so much the theory. It's good to understand what you're doing, because that's, again, it's another type of message that gets sent, merges and gets sent simultaneously. And that's kind of a thing that we're trying to do. And it's the movements that you want. And it's the way that you repeat it. Chord pairs. Even if this movement doesn't appear in the song, it only appears going this way. Just like this one. But you want to practice it both ways. And it doesn't hurt you to do things in different keys, because then you don't get what I call environmental confusion. It's another one of my little, mnemonics. But there'll be a video on that for sure too. But don't worry about it. All these things interlink, and I don't have loads of things on the videos themselves saying now go here, because some of them haven't been made yet, and just because after a while you would just have this checkerboard of stuff, because all these things are meant to interlink. So always look in this description portion of any YouTube video or in any course material that you can see the related things, playlists, things like that, where you can see why these things fit together. You see why they fit together, but you want to be able to find them, and so it's just that's the idea, that you're trying to make all these things work together. So I'm hoping that this will help you. I'm pretty sure it will if you do it and you think about what you're doing, and then you'll find that when it comes to do something that's moving faster, or you don't want any open strings when you hop, that you'll just find that after a while it gets easier and it speeds up, and you can do it a little faster, just like anything else that you do in life, It's just that there's no call for you to do a lot of these movements anywhere else in your life. They only happen on the guitar. And some things will transfer. Some movements will transfer from other activities, like I've said before, about walking, swimming, riding a bike, and getting your rhythm. And some things will move because, you might even do things like roll your fingers on a desktop. Maybe you play tabla, and you're using your fingers for that. But there's a lot of things that end up, transferring as well. So stick at it, and I'll see you next time. And thanks for coming. Thanks for being here.